I'm Kerry Shale.
And I'm Daniel Crespin.
And this is Bob Dylan.
Approximately.
So rather than go straight into the lyrics, I'm going to give you a little preamble, which is I'm going to do the lyrics for my chosen song, and I'm going to do it as Mandy Patinkin. You know Mandy Patinkin?
I do know Mandy Patinkin,
I mean,
yeah.
Mandy Patinkin did a version of this song.
He's a great singer, great vocalist.
Except that he did it like this.
Okay.
The next day was hanging day.
Oh, God. Jesus.
I'm going to do it like that.
It's like Shatner doing Rocky.
Let me get through this. Come on. The next day was hanging day.
Carry on, sorry.
Oh, God. It's going very well.
Going great.
So
swimmingly.
far.
Great, okay.
Maybe this is a bad idea. Okay, here we go. The next... Okay, you know that. You know
I
that.
know that bit, yep.
We'll go on. The sky was overcast. Okay. The next day was hanging day. The sky was overcast and black. Big Jim lay covered up, killed by a penknife in the back. And Rosemary on the gallows, she didn't even blink. The hanging judge was sober. He hadn't had a drink. You can do it with me. Let's do this in harmony. The only person on the scene missing.
Wait, I need...
We could do the whole thing. You do the high growl and I'll do the low growl. Last line. The only person missing on the scene was the Jack of Hearts. Well, that went terrifically well. Anyway, I will never do another Mandy Patinkin cover version.
I just wonder why Mandy Patinkin was doing a Johnny Cash when he did this song. Though
he was doing.
He's very kind of quiet.
Yeah. No, he was totally fucking up his voice.
Yeah.
But he did the entire song, which is a long song.
Yeah, it's a long old song.
Like that, but in a way, it made sense because it was kind of like this old grizzled cowpoke telling this story. And it kind of worked. Like I found it on Spotify. I just happened to be finding cover versions of Lily, Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts, of which there are many, because it's such a great song, even though it runs almost 9 minutes.
It's a great song, isn't it?
It's a great song. And I never sat down and, studied it, but we do that for this podcast. We dive deep. And well, I've got a breakdown of the plot here as well, which I'd never tried to do before. It's meant to just flow over you. But I broke down the plot. These are the things that kind of ostensibly happen in this song. Okay? The song begins just after a festival and just before a cabaret show in a western town. The town's bank is being robbed by a gang of thieves led by some guy called the Jack of Hearts. There's a rich diamond mine owner named Big Jim and his wife Rosemary, and they're attending this show at the cabaret, but they arrive separately because their marriage seems to be under sort of stress. She arrives late. Big Jim intends to use the show to see his mistress, Lily, who is a cabaret performer with an unhappy personal history with men in, was it every walk of life? Men in every walk of life.
I need the lyrics in front of me.
Well, anyway, I'll go on after the show. Lily and then the Jack of Hearts reunite in her dressing room, seemingly to have some sort of sex. Big Jim is suspicious and jealous, and he bursts in on them and he shoots the Jack of Hearts, or he shoots a gun, but the gun does not go off. It just goes click. Rosemary, who by this time is pissed out of her mind and miserable and tired and drunk, stabs Big Jim in the back. We find out about that anyway. It's reported. The next day, Rosemary's about to be executed. The bank has been robbed successfully, and the Jack of Hearts has seemingly disappeared. Lily takes all the dye out of her hair and thinks about her father and her life, and most of all, her lover, the mysterious Jack of Hearts. Jack of Hearts.
And I'll get onto this when we do All Along the Watchtower, which we will do in a couple of episodes. But there's there's a channel on YouTube called Writer, which I would thoroughly recommend for anyone who likes art, essentially, of all varieties. He's a very smart guy, but he did one video when Dylan won the Nobel Prize and said why Dylan won the Nobel Prize, and he uses All Along the Watchtower. But I'll wait till that episode to say the exact quote, because it's a beautiful quote. He puts into words why Dylan wins the Nobel Prize. But part of it is he's saying that there are some films, some trilogies even, that contain less actual plot and narrative than Dylan manages to get into 12 lines of verse in All Along the Watchtower. And I feel like that, although this is a long song, he's got 2-3 Western movies. This could be a trilogy.
Like 3 different
this
Western
could be
movies.
A trilogy of Western movies that he made, and it's hard to do in song form. It's really not easy. Yeah, and it shows he manages to do it with a smirk and a humour as well. And I love that it starts with the most deliberately out of tune harmonica solo ever recorded. I think it's so out of tune. It's clearly supposed to be. I love the fact that there's just so many interesting narrative devices going on. It's a third person narrative, which he does a couple of times in Blood on the Tracks, but it's also, and I've said this in one of our bonus episodes, it's an unreliable narrator. Yeah. You're kind of getting snippets of it. It was said that I've written some of them.
It was said all along that Lily had Jim's ring.
It was said they got off with quite a haul. Yes. It was known all around that Lily had Jim's ring.
Exactly.
They say it happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's like, what actually happened, do we know?
I mean, forgive me for that bad Mandy Patinkin imitation. But it was like, he is a story, he was doing a storyteller voice. You know, he was talking like he was, you know, and saying all that stuff like it was, you know, it was said. But it's also, talk about unreliable. I mean, just the first verse is so full of unanswered questions. Like, the festival was over, the first line. What festival?
What festival? We never get to know what festival.
The boys were all planning for a fall. What does that mean? What is a fall?
Yeah.
Who are the boys?
Who are the boys, and what have you got to do with it? Why are they so... Are you one of the boys? Because it seems you're pretty pally with them.
And then the cabaret was quiet, except for the drilling in the wall. So, like, the cabaret is quiet, but all you can hear is... So they can hear the bank being robbed 2 doors down, but nobody...
I also think... and. For me, I never figure out who the Jack of Hearts is. He's always, there's no real description of him. He's always, Big Jim looks over at the Jack of Hearts and sees him, but doesn't describe him. It's almost like what was the line? Oh.
There's the verse that Dylan included in the original New York recording. Which he left off the Minneapolis recording.
Yes,
And I'll just read it without the bad accent. Lily's arms were locked around the man that she dearly loved to touch. She forgot all about the man she couldn't stand who hounded her so much. I've missed you, she said to him, and he felt she was sincere, but just beyond the door, he felt jealousy and fear. Just another night in the life of the Jack of Hearts. The reason I thought of that is when you said, who is the Jack of Hearts? To me, I can see why he left that out, because it's a bit on the nose for Dylan.
Yes.
And just another night in the life of the Jack of Hearts is just to me, it's just another night in the life of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
It's just like the women are fighting over him. There's a jealous guy on the other side of the door. He feels that she's sincere, but he doesn't know that she's sincere. And it's a bit it's a bit accessible.
It's a bit accessible for Dylan. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had always had this feeling, and I was looking into it, and I'm glad to hear it's not just me that thinks this, but there is talk of possibly the Jack of Hearts being Big Jim, an alter ego of Big Jim, because he's just so mysterious. I wrote down in my notes, it reminds me, is the Jack of Hearts the man in the long black coat? Now I know that's ridiculous, but it's that sort of figure.
Way,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The man in the long black coat is never, she went off with the man in the long black coat. There's descriptions of what he does and the way he acts, but not of him.
No, and it's deliberate.
You never get an image of him.
Exactly. He was standing in the doorway, looking like the Jack of Hearts.
Yeah.
What the
so
fuck
is
does
it the
that
Jack
mean?
of Hearts? Yeah. Is it not?
No, exactly. And of course, that's another doorway. That's this episode's. Well, there's many doors there's windows and doors in this song. I mean, anything that goes on for 9 minutes, there's bound to be, and it's a Dylan song, there's going to be a lot of windows and doors. What else?
So I find the placing of where it is in my favourite album of all time, probably Blood on the Tracks. I find you've just had this A-side of absolute sorrow and Dylan, a vulnerability that I don't think I've ever heard with Dylan prior to that on this level. And then you've got B-side, Meet Me in the Morning, which is essentially a sort of bluesy. I always feel like I'm in the desert watching Tumbleweed go by. And then you've got this before you go back to sort of heartbreak songs. It's almost like even Dylan was like, this is a bit too much for anyone. You can't well, a whole album of
the original New York version, we all know the story about how he recorded it first in New York and then re-recorded half the album in Minneapolis. When his brother said, Bob, it's there's heavy and there's heavy, Bob. Because the original is very heavy, actually. The original version of Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts is quite heartbreaking, and I think in its own weird way, like quite a weird way. But I read somewhere that somebody said that it's out of place on Blood of the Tracks because of the straightforward narrative. Somebody actually said that, and that's why I sort of gave the plot. But if you such as it is, that's not straightforward. There's nothing straightforward about it. And I mean, just trying to dissect the first few lines is nothing but questions. I haven't even got to anyone with any sense had already left town. Because if there's nobody in town, who are the people? There are people without any sense. Yeah. What does that mean?
And it's almost like he does this on a few occasions. He drops you in the middle of a story where it's almost like you've missed out on a thousand. Going back to All Along the Watchtower, I always feel like All Along the Watchtower, the final two lines could be the first two lines. So you get this cyclical kind of where does the story start, where does it end? So it's like the festival was over is how the song starts. So maybe absolute anarchy happened at the festival. You never know what awful things or big dramatic things happened at the festival, and that's where we start the story.
I know. Well, that's a good screenwriting technique. I mean, despite the fact that he wrote one of the most dull and incomprehensible films of all time, he does know. He did that on, I'm sure, Masked and Anonymous. It was done very purposefully. In fact, I think there was a festival in that, wasn't there? I mean, I think that the whole point in Masked and Anonymous, they get him out of retirement and indeed out of jail to perform at this kind of festival, this big concert that they've sort of made up. God, that's a weird film.
It's an odd film, isn't it?
And a bad film.
I can't remember whether you said on the podcast about the final shot of that film and the blankness.
No, I think we had a private conversation. No, the private conversation, but I will. I'll just say it now. What the hell?
Please do.
So for those of you who haven't seen Masked and Anonymous, and it's a film I highly recommend you do never see, except that the shots with the band, like the numbers he plays with his band, are great. They're absolutely great. But anyway, the final shot is Dylan riding in a bus. Did we mention this, or maybe we mentioned it on a podcast? Anyway, here goes.
Maybe on the
pilot. Anyway, he's which will be available as a bonus episode soon, won't it?
At some point, yeah.
Exactly. So Dylan is riding on the back of this bus in the final shot. He's being taken off. I think possibly back to prison, and it's a long. It's like a two shot of him, and I think Giovanni Ribisi, I think is his name, is sitting beside him, and it focuses very, very, very slowly in on Dylan, and it's like a 2-minute sort of gradual approaching close up, and it becomes just a close up of Dylan, and I don't know what he's trying to do, because he's just sitting there and there's absolutely nothing happening. His eyelids, or his eyes are rather completely blank, completely opaque. Like it's almost like he's dead, but it's not as exciting as if he was dead. He's alive, but he's he's doing nothing. I think either because somebody said, Bob,
this is what
film
I'm
acting
thinking.
is doing nothing.
Do nothing and the camera will
pick it up. Or he's managed to expunge every trace of human identity and behavior so that it's boring as fuck. There's nothing going on. And that's just another day in the life of the Jack of Hearts. It's just another day in the life of Bob Dylan.
But there was one thing I just remember from our conversation about it that I love, that you were saying, I'm willing to believe that somehow in 20, 30 years I'll be proved wrong because Bob Dylan is always so far ahead of me. And it's so right. There's
one day people will look at that
shit and then 20 years later, oh, actually he was onto something.
Yeah. No, everybody's doing that.
Yeah. We're actors, but maybe we've got
Bob Dylan got it wrong.
Yeah. Perhaps.
Oh dear.
I also the final verse of this, where there's always in a Western film, there's always a hanging scene, isn't there? Somehow. Yeah. But for me, I'm always like, I love the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's what I'm not a great fan of Westerns. I can appreciate them, but I wouldn't actively sit down and watch many of them anymore. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is one of my favourite films, mainly because of Eli Wallach. I think he's phenomenal in that film, and just a great character actor generally. But I'm expecting with this, I want her to be saved, someone to shoot the rope, and for it all to be a ploy to get the bounty or something.
Well, she's not actually hung in it. Typical Bob Dylan. Rosemary on the gallows. She didn't even blink. She's not dead.
No,
she's on the gallows. I mean, she's not under the gallows.
Yeah.
So,
but I guess from that she didn't even blink, to me sounds like she
could be hanging
was
there,
hanged, but took it like
a
champ.
Exactly. But it's not. It's not. No. It's a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
So
it leaves it open to interpretation.
Here's one of my things that it bothered me so much I had to look it up. So Big Jim lay covered up, killed by a penknife in the back. Do you know what a penknife is?
Well, I just imagine it would be very hard to kill someone with.
Exactly.
They're tiny, especially in the back.
Yes,
if it was in the carotid arttery, I get it.
Yes, exactly, or in the heart.
Yeah.
But no, who has ever been killed by a penknife in the back? And a penknife is a I wasn't quite sure what a penknife was, but it's a small folding knife that was used originally for sharpening quills. That is, say, writing instruments. The sort of thing you might write a song lyric with.
My grandfather always carried one around because
he
was always tinkering with stuff. He'd been an engineer and he was great at making stuff. So I just remember that,
Right, but why is Rosemary carrying a penknife in the first place?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is, like, it's I love it because it's so Bob Dylan.
Oh, it's farcical in some way. It's a farce / Western in a way.
I mean, the music is kind of... But you know what else? I did my deep dive, and I'm afraid I'm going to spring this on you. This is the most cockamamie theory I've ever had. But I thought, what does this remind me of? And we were talking in our last episode about the Beatles versus Bob Dylan, just a little bit, just dipping our toe in it. Well, I'm going to now dip my foot in it. So I thought, what does this remind me of? And I thought it reminds me of Rocky Raccoon. And it just does, because they're honky-tonk Western ballads. The music in Rocky Raccoon is sort of comedy honky-tonk. It's kind of, in a way, comedy honky-tonk in Lily Rosemary. And they both feature guns and girls and broken dreams.
There's something more melancholic about Rocky Raccoon, the way it's sung from it. Rocky Raccoon.
Exactly.
There's something about that gives it a different vibe to me.
But have you heard the original, the original version, which is on the Beatles Anthology 3?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, it's worth listening to, if only for the introduction, because instead of somewhere in the black mining hills of Dakota, there lived a young boy named Rocky Raccoon. This is what he sort of speaks it more. He says, in his terrible cowboy accent, which is much, much worse than Mandy Patinkin's, or my version of Mandy Patinkin's. He says, I'm not going to do it as Paul McCartney doing a terrible cowboy accent, but he says, Rocky Raccoon, he was a fool unto himself, and he would not swallow his foolish pride. Mind you, coming from a little town in Minnesota, it was not the kind of thing that a young guy did. So in that thing, the original version of Rocky Raccoon, not only does he refer to John Wesley Harding In other words, when he uses the line, his foolish pride was just my foolish pride, he said, and this is no place for a man to hide, from John Wesley Harding, he also says little town in Minnesota instead of the black mining hills of Dakota. And my feeling is that was too on the nose, that he was doing a bit of a Dylan parody.
Well, Lennon specifically was known for that, wasn't he, in his time of parodying Dylan?
Yeah, and McCartney was a big Dylan fan.
Yeah, and Harrison as well.
There's more, I'm afraid. There's
the ultimate fan theory,
much
Shale
more.
fan theory.
I never do this, but I did it this time. So her name was McGill, but she called herself Lil from Rocky Raccoon, right? So Lily. Bear with me. This is a stretch. Lil's man who called himself Dan. So you've got Lil and Dan in Rocky Raccoon. Reverse that, what do we get? Dylan. Okay, I'm just saying. And there's other similarities. There's the Gideon's Bible in Rocky Raccoon.
Yeah.
The whole of John Wesley Harding is taken from the Bible. Anyway, just a kind of a crazy
It's
Dylan-y
tenuous,
theory.
but there are things in there. And just to let you know, the next episode I will tell you my thesis of how the sad-eyed lady of the Lowlands is actually Polythene Pam.
Well, we just lost all the listeners for the next episode. Are you joking, or are we?
No, I won't do this.
You know, the whole idea of westerns. I think you told me that you were you a big western fan, or
no?
You're a big horror fan.
A big horror fan, yeah. Yeah, Western, as I say, Good, the Bad and the Ugly is one of my favourite films, but weirdly, I generally, with Westerns, see why they're so brilliant and tongue-in-cheek, but it's not something, generally, a genre I sit down and watch very often.
I like to watch sort of, some of my favourite films are sort of films set in the Western genre, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is just a wisecracking buddy film, but they happen to be riding horses.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well when, or the film like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance just comes to mind, because that's a film about kind of morality, but it's set, well, actually I think a lot of Western films, the really good ones, are about morality and ethics.
Yeah. I think there's something. I think I just like Sergio Leone as Leone. Leone as a director. I love his humor and the hat trick and all that. I love how when hats get shot off, it's like clearly someone behind pulling. It's great.
Who doesn't love that?
It's great. So
I've got a few more theories. Not about Rocky Raccoon is dead and buried.
Trying to think.
But what about
the
this?
Beatles characters.
Let me bounce that. This is not to do with the Beatles. Let me bounce this off you. That Big Jim is actually Bob, stabbed in the back by Sarah, who is tired of the attention, tired of playing the role of Big Jim's wife, because they were going through their estrangement at this point.
Yeah.
And then take a look at this. The bank robbery, which is going on 2 doors down, is Sarah meeting with her divorce lawyer. And they're gonna fleece. They're gonna clean out Bob's vaults.
I mean, I have to say, as I said, this could be a trilogy of westerns in this one song. I would love to see some of the plot points in some sort of absurdist drama set in the old West. It would be so good to watch.
I mean, there have been talks about there's a screenplay somewhere about Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. Yeah. But I don't think it's the reason that Dylan doesn't translate. Unless it's a biopic, his songs won't translate into cinematic terms. They're just too fucking weird.
Yeah. Hi, Bobcats. If you enjoy Bob Dylan approximately and would like access to longer bonus episodes,
early access to all episodes,
plus a whole range of exclusive membership benefits,
consider becoming a Bobsessive over at our Patreon page.
You'll get all that for just £5 a month.
Oh, and if you're going to sign up, please do so via a web browser rather than the Patreon app.
Or Apple take 30% of our Patreon fee.
Because money doesn't talk, it swears.
I was sleeping like a rat when I heard something jerking. There stood Rita, looking just like Tony Perkins. She said, "Would you like to take a shower? I'll show you up to the door." I said, "Oh, no. I've been through this movie before." I knew I had to split, but I didn't know how. When she said, "Would you like to take that shower now?" Well, I couldn't leave unless the old man chased me out, because I'd already promised that I'd milk his cows. I had to say something to strike him very weird. So I yelled out, "I like Fidel Castro and his beard." Rita looked offended, but she got out of the way as he came charging down the stairs saying, "What's that I heard you say?" I said, "I like Fidel Castro. I think you heard me right," and ducked as he swung at me with all his might. Rita mumbled something about her mother on the hill. As his fist hit the icebox, he said he's going to kill me if I don't get out the door in 2 seconds flat. You unpatriotic, rotten Dr. Commie rat.
It really is funny.
It is, isn't it?
And it's even funnier when you kind of read it like...
read it as a dramatic read. Well, this is the thing. It's one of the... You know, he tested out these sort of talking blues songs a lot early in his career, and then it gets to kind of Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, which I think is the pinnacle, and it's clever and it's brilliant. This is a little more technically basic and not as good as 115th Dream, but it's always made me laugh more. I've always found this song incredibly funny and witty.
So this song being Motorpsycho
Nitemare, spelt Nitemare.
Yeah, so one of his, it's not a lost song, but it's not one that is talked about in the same terms as Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, or indeed Subterranean Homesick Blues, which it kind of morphs in both. You know, Motorpsycho Nitemare is like a blueprint for both those later songs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting this is a song, I think, that's sort of making a comment on the McCarthy blacklist in a way. And he does that a few times throughout his early career when it was happening. Talking John Birch Paranoid Blues is the one I can think of off the top of my head. And he when he takes on that subject, I think he very cleverly makes it satire and takes the piss. It's a real way of, I think, mockery is a real way to show the absurdity of what was happening at the time. And yeah, without freedom of speech, I might be in the swamp. Now, so Motorpsycho, there's so many references to the movie Psycho, the Hitchcock
Can we just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to go back and say when exactly this was.
Yes.
Because all these references you know, McCarthyism was a little bit in the it was in the recent past, but it was recorded in June '64. Okay, so that's just to say, and it was on
Another Side of Bob
Dylan,
which is an interesting kind of bridge album. I see it as between his early folk stuff into the next amazing period in his career.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, you know, prefigures that is in this song that I'd never really noticed before. There's all these hip lingo, these phrases like there are in Highway 61, say, which was still to come. God said to Abraham, "Kill me a son." God said, "Man, you must be putting me on." Very hip. But in this one, he says, "I dig farmers. I tried to cool it with her dad. I knew I had to split."
Yep.
So this is weird within the parameters. He's still being considered a folk singer.
Yeah.
And all this really hip stuff is bubbling out.
I think it's often an overlooked album because I really think even if you don't particularly like the album, I think, you know, My Back Pages is on this album, which for me is his song of saying, goodbye. Yeah. I was so much older then, older than I'm younger than that now. It's kind of saying I didn't know what I was saying in a way, or how it was going to be represented, what people were going to take from it. I thought I knew everything. Turns out I don't. And for a 23-year-old with the wisdom of Bob Dylan, that's a major thing to say.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really important album. But this song, it just makes me laugh. It's laughing at sort of small-town American provincial conservatives, essentially. So there's two main movies that it references. One is Psycho, the other is La Dolce Vita. He was a massive Fellini fan, it seems, from what I
can see that.
Yeah.
Because Fellini's films have never made sense to me.
No,
They're not
absolutely.
meant to make sense.
No, they're absurdists, So would you like to take that shower now, talking about the scene from Psycho? Invites him into the shower. Oh, no, I've seen this movie before. I know what's going to happen. I do feel it's like a first draft of 115th Dream, which he recorded 7 months later. This is the thing. Yeah. It's easy to forget because so much genius happens, 3 albums. But they're 18 months, these 3 albums are recorded in. So 115th Dream is exactly the same tune as this. And both about a hapless travelling salesman. I think it's...
Well, it's interesting. I saw it referred to as 115th Dream referred to as being about a traveling salesman, but I actually don't think it is. Because I looked through all the lyrics, and as far as I can tell, if he's anything, he's a sailor, because he sells his sailor's suit.
Yeah.
And, he's on the boat with Captain Arab.
That's true.
So I don't think he's traveling, but he's a traveler. Yeah. That's for sure. And
talk about exile once again.
And Dylan being a complete. The thing that binds it all together is: had you ever been told a traveling salesman joke when you were a kid?
Yeah.
So they had them over here too, because I didn't know. Right. That's really interesting. I mean, the whole thing is predicated on a traveling salesman. On the traveling salesman joke, and they're always dirty jokes. That's another thing about Dylan, even now, is like, I think he likes dirty jokes. Yeah. Like in the joke, I'm afraid, that I told about, it was slightly dirty, the one about the devil and Sodom and Gomorrah. But traveling salesman jokes are always really dirty. Like they're dirty, they don't use dirty words, but they're always about sex things. Yeah. And in this case, I mean, I'm gonna have to say it's a bit. What was that word that we coined? It's a bit Dylan Fraude.
Dylan Fraude.
It's a bit creepy.
Yeah.
In that, with his hip lingo and everything, the main character is kind of like a folk singer. Really, I think he's kind of like, I see him as sort of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
He knocks on the door of this farmhouse, and there's a suspicious farmer and the sex-crazed daughter. And she's sex-crazed. Like, that's all we know about. We know 2 things about Rita. She looks like she stepped out of the Dolce Vita, and she looks like Tony Perkins.
Yeah.
But if she stepped out of the Dolce Vita, the main character, Anita Ekberg,
which he mentions before. Which song is that? Anita Ekberg.
I think it's Bob Dylan's Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Anita Ekberg, Sophia Loren,
Sophia Loren,
Brigitte Bardot, Country Will Grow. There you go. There's a dirty joke there in a Bob Dylan
dick
song.
Joke.
And exactly, and they all have large breasts. All 3 of those actresses were known, particularly Anita Ekberg was just known. She was busting out of that dress in the fountain scene in La Dolce Vita. So there is one other character who is the cow, who is referred to quite a few times. And what do we think of, with the phrase milk the cow? It's a lady thing. Let's bring it back to Anita Ekberg, okay? So she's got large breasts. And that's really all we kind of know about Rita. And it's weird because we know that she's got, can I say big tits on a pop?
Big tits, let's go. Big tits Dylan. And big tits approximately.
It's like you in your mind, I'm sorry for this, listeners, but in your mind you see Tony Perkins with big tits.
Well, this is the fucking funny thing about it. He refers to Rita as 2 people. Essentially, she looked like she stepped out of the Dolce. So she looks like Anita Ekberg, who is stunning and voluptuous and womanly.
Yeah.
But then later, looking just like Tony Perkins in Psycho.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Bob.
Yeah, it's like you've gone from one extreme to another.
And these are the dreams that Bob Dylan, I think maybe genuinely has.
It'd be a Jungian's absolute wet dream.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
And just to go back to Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, there is a Guernsey cow
making
another appearance in one of Bob Dylan's dreams. So I mean, when you suggested this, I thought, really? I thought Motorpsycho Nitemare. I mean, I thought it's a minor work in the oeuvre. And I went to it, and the first time I listened to it, I thought, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't really get that. And then the second time and the third time, it actually gets funnier the more you listen to it.
Yeah. And I think it's very funny, but also he somehow makes it very pointed as well. It's clear to me what he's having a go at. He knocks on the door with doors again. Starts with a door.
Yeah.
Knocks on the door immediately. He stuck a gun into my guts.
Yeah.
So it's like you can see that image now of sort of rural America. Conservative right-wing Bible Belt America is what I have in my mind.
Yeah.
He says, "Are you that traveling salesman I heard about?" So he lies and says, "No, I'm a doctor."
Yeah.
So he's lying.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah.
I then this is a line that always maybe it means something that I don't know. Where is it? I need to find it. So it's the bit where it says, "What do farmers know about? What do doctors know about farms? Pray tell." I said I was born at the bottom of a wishing well.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Exactly. No, I have no idea. Well, when I started listening to it, I thought there's a lot of this that seems to be a kind of to me it's a very stoned song. Like it's got a kind of a stoned illogic. I mean, a lot of Dylan songs, none of them are particularly logical, but this one. When I first read it, I thought this is just like something he smoked a few, joints and just wrote this song, and I think I quite like that, and I don't know what that line means. It's not even funny. It's just
bizarre.
It's just bizarre. It gets you more into the dreamlike, like by calling it. I mean, you can do anything in. Well, actually, he doesn't really say that this is a dream, does it? It just seems like a dream.
Yeah, it seems like a dream. There's a lot. The reason I like this song is I feel like it's not that it's the first one he's done of a talking blues, but it feels like it's leading up to the stuff like 115th Dream and also Subterranean Homesick Blues, which is a different song because it's sort of smattering images.
And Subterranean Homesick Blues strikes me as something that he really worked on.
Yes,
like Subterranean, Every word is a gem.
But I think it comes from working on stuff like this, building it up to this.
Exactly. It's sort of like doing improv or something. By the way, he doesn't even mention motorcycle in this song.
No,
it's called Motorpsycho.
Motorpsycho.
And he does say, I drove 10,000 miles, which is impossible in a day. I drove 10,000 miles today.
Yeah.
But there's something you're waiting for him to escape on his motorcycle just because he mentions it in the title, but doesn't mention it in the song.
No. One of the funniest things I find about this song is the narrator. So the fact he feels morally obligated to milk the cows due to a promise that he'd made to the farmer who tried to kill him at the start. It's like any logical person would go, right, I'm in trouble here. He's a psychopath. I've got to run. You'd run into the night, wouldn't you? But he's like,
but there's an ethical point here.
I already said I'd milk his cows, and I shall live by my promise. He'd rather risk death and just run off into the night.
Can I make a few psycho points?
Yes, please.
Which is just that, just in case people these days aren't movie freaks and they maybe have never even seen Psycho.
Yeah.
So Psycho, this Alfred Hitchcock film, which came out just sort of before this song was written, I think within the year. There's a mother and a son who are ostensibly, anyway, running this hotel, which is the reverse of the father and the daughter. It's a hotel out in the middle of the boonies, which the farmer and his daughter
is.
And so there's a slightly creepy, but it's a motel. There's a woman who is just embezzled some money, and she's driving. She's got the cash in the boot of her car, and she's driving to meet her lover. And I can't remember if she breaks down, or I think she's just too tired. She can't quite make it to where she's going. I haven't seen the movie in some years.
Many years.
But anyway, she's a strong woman who has stolen this money. She comes to the door and asks to stay the night at this deserted hotel.
Bates Motel.
The Bates Motel. And he offers her a meal. And, it's not entirely unlike the traveling salesman thing, except the guy does sort of bring her into the hotel, even though it's the motel, rather, even though there's no other guests. And I think she hears him having an argument with his mother, I think, through the hotel wall.
Yes, yeah.
And she's sort of, the mother screams, "Get that girl out of here. I don't want her here." And
Mom,
he says, "Mom." Yeah. And then he comes and brings her the most unappetizing meal, which is kind of like, I think it's like white bread and butter, and she sort of butters the bread.
I haven't watched this film in years.
Well, I remember this. Well, actually, to be honest, I found this little scene on YouTube the other day, and it's a great scene because he's so out of his fucking mind, and she's the way you do when you meet somebody who, I've met a few people who were out of their fucking minds in social situations, and you just talk to them like they're not crazy. And so he says he's surrounded by all these stuffed animals as well in the office. He gives her the bread and butter in the office of the motel, and she says, "I heard you, talking to your mother. I think, people. There's a place for people who have problems like that." And he takes huge offense and says, "I will never put my mother in an institution." And she backs off, and then of course it transpires, spoiler alert, that he is the mother, that he's internalized the mother, and that voice is coming out of him, and the mother, he's murdered the mother, and the mother's corpse and is turned into a rotted skeleton.
And it's very famous as a movie, I think, because, well, for many reasons, but I'm sure there were many movies before that did this, but a mainstream Hitchcock movie where the protagonist dies in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
Which you just, I imagine, if in 1963, 64,
that
you wouldn't
never
have seen
been done.
coming.
Not been done.
So you just kill off the protagonist
Yeah.
halfway through the film in the famous shower scene. Would you like to take that shower now?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, I've seen this movie before. So that's kind of what he's referencing in that. There's also references to the swamp at the end of the song, which is in the film, the final scene, the car containing her body is dragged out of the swamp, I seem to remember. That's the closing of the film, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think at the he's sitting in the office in the sheriff's office. He's been arrested, and you hear the mother in his head. And in fact, it's a close-up that's very similar. It's a very, very, very slow close-up that eventually is a full close-up of Tony Perkins. And it's a bit like...
It's Master Anonymous.
Yeah. Again, it's Master Anonymous.
Good.
But good. It's Master Anonymous.
But really good.
But good.
So sort of the opposite of Master Anonymous.
I mean, going back to the thing that you read, the first... There's what seems to be some really awful lyrics, stroke poetry, stroke lyrics. Like I heard something jerkin. There stood Rita looking just like Tony Perkins. First of all, that's a terrible rhyme, jerkin and Perkins. And B, jerkin, is that like a sex thing?
It could be. I mean, she's sex crazed in this song, isn't she?
Yeah,
Rita.
It's Rita.
It looks like Tony Perkins and Anita Ekberg all in one somehow.
Yeah, it's a bit Bob Schrouder, whatever we said. It's
Dylan Schrouder.
Dylan Schrouder. It's
Dylan Freuder.
It's creepy. But it's creepy in a good, funny way.
Yeah,
I quite like that. But later, right towards the end of the song, he says, "Me, I romp and stomp, thankful as I stomp." Is that? What is that? Like he rhymes romp with stomp, and then he rhymes it with romp. Is that good? I mean, it's
probably not.
It's funny, but it's kind of like it's almost deliberately bad.
Yeah, well, I think, like, for instance, I like Fidel Castro and his beard.
Oh, I love that line.
I love that line. Yeah. I mean, it's mocking. To me, it's mocking small town conservative America. What's the thing to get the most ire out of a rural farmer? Say you like Fidel Castro and his beard.
I know. And I mean, actually, it's very truthful. Like, what's that I hear you say?
Yeah. What you say? We don't take kindly to lamb folks around here. It's very much like that.
And you unpatriotic, rotten Dr. Commie rat is wonderful. I just love that. Such a funny... And why does he call himself a doctor? Because they're they're respected.
Respectable.
Back then, I think, now doctors have come into disrepute. They've been mass murderers. They don't have
Shipmen and all that.
Yeah, they do not have the respect. But back then, being a doctor was like the top of the tree.
But even then, he still said, "What do doctors know about farming?" It's almost like still a reverse snobbery. It's like, "Oh,
Yes.
you don't tell me about what you." It's sort of that.
Yeah.
I was born at the bottom of a wishing well, which means
Absolutely
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And the reference to Clean Cut Kid, of course, he wrote a song called Clean Cut Kid, which I really like that song, Clean Cut Kid.
I do as well, actually.
It's not well regarded, really, but it rocks. And also, I think the whole phrase, Clean Cut Kid, which was a phrase back then, it was a good old American boy.
Yeah.
I
also love, there's just smatterings of brilliant lines. The little details, like he throws a Reader's Digest at Bob Dylan's characters, which is quite a conservative Middletown America magazine as far as I know.
It was a little, we used to have Reader's Digests actually in our bathroom. I think my parents subscribed. And they weren't the regular size of magazines. They were like half the size of magazines. They were like a little bit bigger than a CD case, but they were thick, and you could really brain somebody with Reader's Digest. You could really do some like if you threw a Life magazine at them, that was not going to do anything, because that was for people who read, but Reader's Digest, that you could was a little bit of a doorstop. And Reader's Digest digested books for you. So if it was Portnoy's Complaint, it would be like, just, this is a book about a guy who jerks off into, and basically they'd cram it all into 12 pages. That's what they did. So yes, it is.
If we don't have anything else to say about it, would you mind me? Because I actually feel like I got something out of at the start reading it as like a dramatic reading. There's something about it that's quite funny.
Yeah, go.
If I read something, just if there's anything that pops up to you, let me know.
Okay.
If not, so
yeah.
I pounded on a farmhouse looking for a place to stay.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I'm sorry, I don't mean this can go on all day, but I think it's really interesting that he says, I pounded on a farmhouse.
Yeah.
Because what he means, what we both take from that, is he pounds on a farmhouse door. Mm-hmm. But being Bob Dylan, he doesn't say that. He just says, I pounded on a farmhouse, which is a weird, but it cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It's sort of like, boom, we're there. We're in. There's pounding. There's a farmhouse.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
It's economical in a way, because the meaning is I pounded on a farmhouse door, but that then breaks up the rhythm.
Yeah.
So it's like I pounded on a farm.
Anyway, go on.
I pounded on a farmhouse looking for a place to stay. I was mighty, mighty tired. I'd come a long, long way. I said, hey, in there, is there anybody home? I was standing on the steps, feeling most alone. Well, out comes a farmer. He must have thought that I was nuts. He immediately looked at me and stuck a gun into my guts. I fell down to my bended knees, saying, I dig farmers, don't shoot me, please. He cocked his rifle and began to shout, Are you that travelling salesman that I heard about? I said, No, I'm a doctor, and it's true. I'm a clean-cut kid, and I've been to college, too. Then in comes his daughter, whose name was Rita. She looked like she stepped out of La Dolce Vita. I immediately tried to cool it with her dad and told him what a nice, pretty farm he had.
I have to stop you just because, only because I love the fact, I like the phrase nice, pretty farm.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. Like, who says pretty?
Nice, pretty farm.
I mean,
especially to a big burly farmer with a gun.
Yeah. It's a very big city way of, it's like a Woody Allen film. You got a nice, pretty farm. Go on.
And told him what a nice, pretty farm he had. He said, what do doctors know about farms, pray tell? I said, I was born at the bottom of a wishing well. I mean, what the fuck does that mean?
Exactly. And the next line, what does the next line mean?
Well, by the dirt beneath my nails, I guess he knew I wouldn't lie.
So, excuse me.
Yeah.
Like, this guy has just said he's a doctor.
Yeah.
But he's got the dirt beneath his nails. Again, I find that typical sort of Dylan disorienting.
Yeah. It's somewhere honest, I do
physical labor.
I do physical labor. I'm not
But he's just said he was this doctor who will clean their hands all the time.
Yeah.
So, good, interesting, confusing line.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Well, by the dirt beneath my nails, I guess he knew I wouldn't lie. I guess you're tired, he said, kind of sly. I said, so what does that mean, kind of sly? I guess you're tired. He said, kind of
Well,
sly.
the thing is, they always, at this point, the guy makes a deal in the dirty joke, the traveling salesman joke. He always says, well, I guess you're kind of tired, but you can sleep here tonight, but don't.
But there's a deal.
Yeah, here's the deal.
Yeah.
And it's usually, don't touch my daughter.
Yeah.
But in this case...
I said, yes, 10,000 miles today I drove. He said, I got a bed for you underneath the stove. Just one condition, and you go to sleep right now. You don't touch my daughter, and in the morning, milk the cow.
So, and this is where we came in, but you might as well go on.
Yeah, okay. I was sleeping like a rat when I heard something jerking. There stood Rita looking just like Tony Perkins. She said, would you like to take a shower? I'll show you up to the door. I said, oh, no, I've been through this movie before. I knew I had to split, but I didn't know how. When she said, would you like to take that shower now? Well, I couldn't leave unless the old man chased me out, because I'd already promised that I'd milk his cows. I had to say something to strike him very weird, so I yelled out, I like Fidel Castro and his beard! Rita looked offended, but she got out of the way as he came charging down the stairs saying, what's that I heard you say? I said, I like Fidel Castro. I think you heard me right. And he ducked as he swung at me with all his might. Rita mumbled something about her mother on the hill. As his fist hit the icebox, he said he's going to kill me if I don't get out the door in 2 seconds flat. You unpatriotic, rotten Dr. Commie rat. Well, he threw a Reader's Digest at my head, and I did run. I did a somersault as I seen him get his gun, and crashed through the window, we've talked about, so there's a door and a window in both these songs, at 100 miles an hour, and landed fully blast in his garden flowers.
By the way, I had to go back and check that. Landed fully
blast, yeah.
What the fuck? But, you know, it's
blast,
good. He hadn't done anything that, you know,
that was weird,
completely incomprehensible.
Yeah.
So there it is. Yeah.
And landed fully blast in his garden flowers. Rita said, come back. As he started to load, the sun was coming up and I was running down the road. Well, I don't figure I'll be back there for a spell, even though Rita moved away and got a job in a motel.
Psycho reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Last Psycho reference. And got a job in a motel. He still waits for me, constant on the sly. He wants to turn me into the FBI. Me, I romp and stomp, thankful as I romp. It's fucking weird. You're right. Me, I romp and stomp, thankful as I romp. Without freedom of speech, I might be in the swamp.
You know, in a way, reading without freedom of speech, like the punchline being the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But also, he's taken the piss in a way out of protest songs. This is like a piss take of protest songs.
Yeah, and as I said, it's that Bridge album to me, isn't it? I do believe this is a really important album. I just love the thought of, like, he still waits for me constantly. He's constantly there outside his house with a going down.
I'm going to get that.
Commie rat.
Yeah, exactly. No, you've opened this song up to me. A song that I thought was a kind of a throwaway.
It's always just made me laugh, but also the message of it is clear, and I like that, and it's hard to do in songs. So, yeah.
That was Bob Dylan Approximately with Carrie Shale
and Daniel Crespin. Produced by Robin Guise.
And recorded at Lipsync Post, Soho, London.
For longer bonus episodes, join our Patreon feed.
And if you have a Bobsessive friend, please spread the word.
It ain't quite the end.
We'll just bid farewell till we meet again.